One of the biggest tips I could probably give is trust the expert. And I know that can sound contrite, but we're not brain surgeons. We're not saving people's lives, but what we're doing is saving people's budgets and giving them spaces that they love. And I think the best design outcomes lie with that of find the person that you trust, that you believe will look after your financial assets, your well-being and what you need from a home, and take that and run with it to give you the perfect outcome for you. And it's when the trust comes, that's when the best outcomes come.
Yeah. G'day everyone, and welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the Build Insite Podcast. We are joined live in the studio today by Joanne from Broadfeather Design. I've got Dean, my co-host, in with me here as well. He's flown over from Melbourne for a couple of days. We're trying to punch out a few recordings live in the studio. Joanne, I'm going to pass straight over to you. Give us a little bit more of an intro on yourself. Tell us about Broadfeather and where your journey started.
Oh, that's complicated. No, not really. I'm probably what most people would say is not a stereotypical designer. Me personally, I'm into four-wheel driving and hands-on with tools, and I'm not what most people think of when they picture an interior designer. So my path into design was a bit different than most. I actually started as a nurse, qualified as a registered nurse straight out of school, and did that for a few years. But it was during that process that we started building some spec homes to sell and make money for investments. And it was doing that I went, I actually really like this. Maybe this is what I should be doing. And so then I went back, studied design. And in doing that, I think partnered with the fact that I'd grown up with tools in my hands, thanks to my dad, really, that I went, I actually want to have my own business. I don't want to be a cog in somebody else's wheel. That just didn't feel right for me. And so I knew that I had a passion and a skill set that I could put out there that offered sort of a construction background and understanding whilst making things look aesthetically beautiful and function as well. And so I thought I had a different offering than just going and working for somebody else. I always knew I wanted the joy of running a business and the stress that goes with it, of course, but having team members as well. I always knew I wanted it to be more than just me.
That sounds amazing. I actually really liked what you said there. You've had some hands-on experience, Joanne, because I think the best designers, engineers, consultants we work with, they've got some sort of background involvement in understanding. No matter if you're just doing interior design, you're there in the build process. That's great to hear that part of the story. With Broadfeather, what's your sort of driving passion with it? And do you have a certain style that you like working on the most?
I guess our business philosophy really boils right down to the core of our business and our business name, in that it was a merging of two of my favourite designers. There's Grant Featherston, who's a mid-century Australian furniture designer. His pieces are still iconic, still used around the world. And the other is Florence Broadhurst, who was active in the 60s and 70s, a pattern wallpaper fabric artist who was about creating patterns for people to live their lives and express themselves. And so those two Australian designers, one in furniture, one more decorative, their passions for executing pieces that are quote unquote timeless because they speak to the core of the person that they're designing for. That then became the business name and became the core of what we do, is that we don't have a specific design style. People don't come to us and say, I come to you because you do this and everything looks like this, and so I want it to look like project A, B, or C. They say, I want you to make my space reflect me. And so for us, our philosophy is that no two projects should ever be the same. There's no cookie cutter. It is 100% tailored to those people and those people that live there, not their friends, not their neighbours, not their parents, to them.
So much of it is the person's personality that you're trying to bring out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I have to put my hand up, and we've been wanting to get some interior design perspective on the podcast. So we get a lot of builders in, designers, and there's women in the industry doing great things. I've been in the industry for 20 years, started with carpentry, into building for probably 14, 15 years now. And I think back then things have changed a lot. It was probably more uncommon for people to have full interior design spec back then. It was like, we'll just go and pick and choose as we like. And I used to look back with some of the early ones we work with and I thought, I don't need this involved because we can handle this throughout.
Yes.
And we've come right around now with Backman Builders, and we insist our clients have an interior designer involved. Really makes the whole project tie in together. You can have great plans, you can have a great builder involved, but there's so much work in between with what you guys do in the industry for interior design.
Absolutely. And I think having that plan, engaging a designer from the outset, yes, it was a thing that for a long time was deemed a luxury that only certain people could afford. And I think that perception, fortunately, has changed a lot. And it is something that is much more widely adopted now. But the asset that it brings to the builder and to the client during the construction phase of having all of those I's dotted and T's crossed before construction starts, so that then if something needs to change during construction because during a reno something's come to light that no one was aware of or something's discontinued, as happens, 99% of the decision, we just need to find that one puzzle piece to go back in. And so when there's a big picture already there, that's easier. You're not making a decision in isolation. So I think having someone hold your hand through the start of the process and then through construction just makes it so much less stressful all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the better documentation that can be provided as well. We're fortunate enough, we've actually just used your service on one of our jobs at the moment, and it's just the simple stuff that we waste so much time on site of where is the mixer tap going? Where's the height of the shower outlet coming out? Where's the exact location of the mixer taps coming out of the wall for the basins? We give that documentation direct to the plumber, to the trades on site. There's no questions asked. There's no second guessing. The information's right there. So I think there's trying to get people's perception of, like you mentioned, it was seen as too expensive in the early days and it was a luxury item to bring in someone like yourself. The better documented it is from the start, spending that money up front, it's actually going to save you so much in the long run, because in an example like that, if we didn't have that, I would then be on site. I'd have to be answering the questions from the plumber or Sparky, whoever it is. And then we may interpret that documentation in a different way because those details aren't there. Then the homeowner comes out and they go, what's the mixer tap there?
That's not where I wanted
it, or how does that work? So yeah, it is trying to get people's understanding around to the better detail, and the more money you spend up front, it's going to smooth the process out.
And in the end, it saves both time and dollars, because the dollars of you giving a direction to a plumber and then the client coming in and saying that's not what I wanted, and so then the plumber has to shift it. So there's dollars associated with that, but also the time of, if you're trying to make a decision on site that you really think you need the client's input on and you're trying to call them, but they're in the middle of a meeting at work. And so the plumber's standing there on site, time's ticking away, you're waiting for a response. So maybe he has to come back tomorrow. Maybe he can't come back tomorrow. Maybe it's in a week. And so it costs time, delays in construction potentially too. So yes, if all those things are documented from the outset, doesn't mean there's no questions, but it means there's far less questions.
That's right, yeah. I need to jump in here for a minute, guys, to thank our sponsors, Backman Builders and Calorie Building. Without the support of these businesses, the Build Insite podcast wouldn't be possible. Take a moment to go and show some support for them so they can continue to support us, bringing you the Build Insite podcast. But maybe before we go too far, can we maybe just explain what the role of an interior design is? Because I know we had a brief conversation about this the other day. There's a huge misconception that you just design curtain colours and things like that. There's so much more that goes into interior design. Please tell the listeners, what is the role of an interior designer?
Yeah, you're spot on. There's a lot of people that think that interior designers and interior decorators are the same, and they're actually two completely different roles. And we do both. My business, I purposely surround myself with team members who are very versatile, and so I make sure that everybody can do interior design and interior decoration. But interior decoration is more the soft furnishings and things that bring the finishing touches to a home, furniture, artwork, curtains, all of those sorts of things. The interior design point of view is really, if you imagine walking into your home and there's plasterboard walls lined and nothing else, concrete floor. We work through the clients on everything: cornice, skirting, architrave, what the cabinetry looks like, exactly where their glad wrap is going to go in their kitchen. So it's not just the finishes, it's the shape and the functionality of it, the tiles, the flooring, everything you can imagine. we do. And it's not just those finishes, it's how they pair together, but also the spatial planning, which is, I think, probably the most misunderstood part of interior design is that people think I have to go to an architect or a building designer first and get my plans 100% spot on and then engage an interior designer.
Yeah.
Except the trouble is there's a little bit of a false economy in that one of the big assets that myself and my team have is that we are all very skilled spatial planning designers. And so we spend a lot of time working with our clients and poking the bear and asking them questions about how they use their spaces and why. And just because you've always done something that way, if you had opportunity to change it, would you? And so sometimes those rooms change a little bit in layout, and they're not things that require going back to council or anything, but it might be that we shift a wall by 100 mil even to gain better functionality in another space. And if those things are done with us right at the very start, when the concept drawings are done with an architect, it means that you're not getting to full working drawing stages and then having to go back and revisit and make changes again. So
you're
it's
avoiding
faster in the end.
You're avoiding the unnecessary fees again, aren't you?
Absolutely.
You've paid for that final design, and then if you need to come in and walls and stuff need to be moved on the architectural plans, well, then they're not going to change them for free.
Absolutely.
Joanne, the amount of times I have seen like a 1 meter gap between a bank kitchen cupboards and an island bench, I'd be a rich man if I took $1 every time. But those are the exact type of things. And you say to a client, oh, great, you've got the size island bench that you want. Your fridge opens this way. Where are you going to stand when you open the fridge up? And all this sort of stuff. And
or if your dishwasher's open, how do you scoot around the end of the panel to get to the drawer on the other side?
And I mean, we talk a lot about collaboration, and my favorite saying is teamwork makes the dream work. And this is why we've gone down the road of insisting that we have that interior design. Because you can pick that up along the way, and everyone knows what's going on, from tap placements to where you're going to cook from and clean from. So, Joanne, the amount of times I've seen on a plan a metre space between a bank of kitchens and an island bench, for example, is just crazy. And I think the clients that aren't engaging a team around them early days, it becomes a bit harder to convince them from our side of things when they've got their ideal, say, island bench space or ideal vanity size, and then there's other flow-on effects for placement. What are some of your biggest tips and tricks, along with the teamwork and collaboration behind being an interior designer?
I think one of the biggest tips I could probably give is to trust the expert. And I know that can sound contrite, but we're not brain surgeons. We're not saving people's lives, but what we're doing is saving people's budgets and giving them spaces that they love. And I think people get the best outcome when they find and engage a designer that they resonate with, and then they trust that person. And I think if I go back to heart surgery, for example, no, we're not heart surgeons, but if you had a heart problem and you needed surgery, yes, you would pick the heart surgeon that you believe is the best fit for you and what you need, and their skill set matches yours. But once you're on the operating table, you're asleep. Yep. You're not standing there micromanaging the process and saying, did you do that stitch right? Did you do this? You go to sleep trusting that when you wake up that everything is going to be as you anticipate. And I think the best design outcomes lie with that of find the person that you trust, that you believe will look after your financial assets, your well-being, and what you need from a home, and take that and run with it to give you the perfect outcome for you. And it's when the trust comes, that's when the best outcomes come.
Yeah, definitely. Do you work with builders from an early onset as well? And I know from past experiences, there's maybe been tender processes we're on early days that we don't do anymore, but we're not there early on to understand maybe how helmets were designed, and this is the look you're going and the aesthetic you're going for. And then you get to that part and you're like, oh, that's not right because this is what my intention was. How do you approach that with when you're on site working with the build team as well?
We like to get in as early as we can. That's where getting in at the sort of planning, drawing stages is great, because things like helmets, we can ask the clients those questions while it's still lines on a page and it's not timber work in action. If it is timber work in action and we've been brought into the process, though, frames are up, doesn't mean those things can't be done. It's just about what's the cost implication of that. And thinking through what are the flow-on effects, the number of times that we have people bring us in at the last minute and it might be that they want a pelmet for their window treatments and the carpenter's already gone. So it's bringing them back. It's another cost. Or it might be that it's really late in the process. Walls are lined. They're happy to not have a pelmet, but their alarm cabling has all been pulled through right in the corner. So it's not as simple as let's just put curtains across there. It's we've got to get that cabling moved and then some patching and painting done. So it's about whenever we come in, solving not just that immediate and obvious problem, but thinking through the flow through of what else is going to happen as a result of this and making sure that the client and the builder that we're working with both understand that and everybody's on the same page.
Yep. Pure clarity, definitely.
What's shifting a little bit? Are there any design trends at the moment that you're excited about? And what's your take on these sort of fast, popular, trendy things that might not be everlasting and just some long-lasting design principles?
Okay. Trend would be probably not so much a specific trend, but more a movement, just to be pedantic. But the movement towards, it's getting quite a popular term, Wabi Sabi, this Japanese movement of embracing the imperfect, of understanding that we as humans are not perfect. We are changing. We live in a world where the natural environment is not perfect. It's constantly changing. And so it's about embracing that in us and our surroundings, and then also in the homes and structures that we surround ourselves by. So it's like an anti-trend in a way of going, I'm not going to build hard and fast things that are just specifically for now. I know that I'm not perfect and my home doesn't have to be perfect either. And so I would like to surround myself with things that, yes, I will enjoy for a long time. People, constantly ask for something timeless, but that principle and trend, to use that word of the Wabi Sabi, is our homes being a reflection of us, and that you see that coming through in things like mixtures of matte tiles and gloss tiles now. That for a long time, all that was around was gloss. And then all that was around was matte tiles. And now people are, but it used to be brass. It has to be brass, has to be brass. And then it has to be brushed nickel. And things are mixing up. And that imperfect principle of it's okay to not have everything perfectly matched. Yeah. It's okay to mix tiles together that aren't both gloss or both matte. It's okay to have tiles that have a little bit of a rustic edge. It doesn't mean that my house has to be country. It's just my house is a little bit soft around the edges, a bit like me type thing.
Yep.
So it's about the trend, I think, is moving from short-lived specific trends in more permanent things in our home towards a trend of I want my home to be a reflection of me, which is how I think it always should have been. And in a way, I think a lot of that, we don't have many things to thank COVID for, but I think everybody being stuck in their homes for so long made people go, stuff this, I'm not designing this house for the resale, always thinking of the resale or my friends, or I actually want this to be a reflection of me. And I think that's now coming out with people being willing to mix things together.
Okay, guys, that was the end of part one with our chat with Joanne from Broadfeather Design. Join us next week as we wrap up the insights into interior design. See you then.
Let's cue the disclaimer. I need to let you know that myself and the Build Insite team are in no way, shape or form qualified to give you personal or specific business advice. We strongly encourage you seek out the use of professionals for products or when you are making personal or business decisions. Everything discussed during the Build Insite podcast is our own and the guest opinion and personal experience and is of a general nature only. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch you on the next one.